Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtada Khan, your host, and today we are going to do the show live again, the geopolitics this week. Uh, as far as India is concerned, China was the dominant topic for this week. India's pivot towards China, India's foreign policy shift, accommodating China, leaning more towards Russia, India, China, responding to the pressures and the bullying from the United States. These were some of the key aspects of India's week. Globally, of course, the most dominant issue is Donald Trump's efforts to bring about a ceasefire between the US and between Ukraine and Russia. I'll talk very briefly about those two other issues. One other issue is that Donald Trump's FBI, Kash Patel, has raided Ambassador John Bolton's house. And Ambassador John Bolton, as you know, is a very strong critique of Donald Trump. He criticizes Donald Trump practically every day on nearly every channel, from Fox, CNN to MSNBC. But he was also the national security advisor of Donald Trump in the first administration. So that is another important event. And of course, the tragedy in Gaza continues to unfold. The genocide is ongoing. The United Nations has issued a report that has basically confirmed that there is an organized effort to starve the people in Gaza by Israel. So that is another big issue. It is creating a lot of disruptions. Ministers are resigning in Netherlands, for example, and because their countries are not able to take a firmer stance against Israel. There are no sanctions yet. And so things are moving on that front. So the big issues really for this week are, number one, Donald Trump's efforts to bring about ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Number two, India's response to Donald Trump's tariffs, and India's basically rejigging its foreign policy to essentially lean towards Russia and China more, because this week even Dr. Jaishankar was in Moscow, where he got to meet Putin and, of course, Sergei Lavrov. And then, of course, we are also talking about the growing intolerance for criticism in more and more democracies. As you know, in India, my channel was blocked by the Modi government. So there, I have a new channel in India. So some of you are watching me on my India channel. If it's Conversations 2025, you're watching me on my India channel. If it's just Conversations with Professor Muqtada Khan, then you're watching me on my global channel. I'm live streaming on both. I will take your questions and comments, but let me just briefly summarize these issues. Number one, looks like Donald Trump's effort to bring about ceasefire is not going as smoothly as it did. He was able to meet with Putin and then meet with Zelensky and the European leaders. I have done shows on them. You can go take a look at it. And it looked as if it was very successful going forward. But Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, in an interview with NBC Meet the Press, I think, with Karen Walker, said very clearly that there seems to be no agenda, and Putin will not meet Zelensky unless the agenda is presidential. That's the word he used. Unless the agenda is presidential, he's not going to meet. And the Russians are. It was clear that he was very irritated with Zelensky and saying that Zelensky is saying no to everything. And what is also interesting is that Sergei Lavrov sort of made it very clear that that Donald Trump was not accurate in his description to the Europeans about what he had agreed with Putin. So Donald Trump told the Europeans that Putin was okay with security guarantees for Ukraine after ceasefire, and the Europeans interpreted it to be a NATO-like guarantee. In fact, Ursula von der Leyen actually used the word Article 5. Article 5 of the NATO treaty basically says that if you attack one country, then it is like attacking all countries, and all countries will come to the defense. So if they're going to extend Article 5 like security guarantee to Ukraine, which means if you attack Ukraine, it's like attacking Poland, Germany, France, US, UK, etc., and Canada, then it's like very much extending NATO's guarantee to Ukraine without calling it NATO. So the Russians, I'm sure, I was very surprised when Donald Trump and the Europeans were talking about that. In fact, I did a small episode on NATO Light, LIGHT, making fun of the NATO like. And I predicted that Putin would not accept it. And Sergei Lavrov was very clear. He says zero presence of NATO in Ukraine is very, very clear. And that is why, and if Zelensky continues to insist on a NATO-like security guarantees, I don't think Putin is even going to meet with Zelensky. So a whole week has passed. So they met last Friday, and nearly 10 days have now passed. It was on 15th of August that Donald Trump met with Putin. It's 9 days now, and there is no meeting scheduled yet with Zelensky. So that's as far as that concerned. As far as John Bolton's issue is concerned, I will be coming to the India issue shortly. As far as the John Bolton issue is concerned, the FBI raided John Bolton's house, and they have taken a lot of documents outside. Everybody, the media generally, especially the liberal media and the left of center media, is screaming that this is essentially a revenge from Donald Trump, because this guy is being critical of Donald Trump's foreign policy on a daily basis. He's very cavalier in the way he talks about Donald Trump. Basically, he says Donald Trump is an idiot, doesn't know what he's doing. But what is also interesting is that in the first administration of Donald Trump, they had actually started an investigation against John Bolton for mishandling of classified documents for his book, which he wrote. And when the Biden administration came to power, they simply canceled that investigation. So Kash Patel has now restarted that investigation. And he is basically saying that we want to see if some classified documentation. And John Bolton could be in really serious trouble going forward, because even if the book apparently does not have anything in it which is classified, but let's say the first draft of the book had stuff in it which was classified, which the editors saw, then he's violated the law, and he could be in trouble. He could even go to jail. So it's a very interesting thing. And if John Bolton goes to jail, because remember, the Biden administration also raided Donald Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago in Florida on the same charges. So it's going to be interesting to watch what happens, because listening to right-wing podcasters, they're not going to be just satisfied with John Bolton. They want one big hit. They either want Hillary Clinton behind bars, Bill Clinton or Obama, or someone big for what they think has been the politicization of the Department of Justice, because under the Biden administration, there were so many cases that were filed against Donald Trump, and he was, convicted on 34 of counts, etc. As far as the Gaza is concerned, the starvation is continuing. It's become a horrible, horrible situation. The Israelis have now invaded Gaza City. Israel is trying very hard to ethnically cleanse it and kill as many Gazans as possible. The voice of the global south obviously has lost its tongue, has become dead. This is supposed to be not an era of war, but it is an era of genocide, I guess. But the European countries are now getting ready to recognize Palestine as a state. And there is a lot of turmoil inside Europe because the public is completely sick of what is happening in Gaza in their name. Everybody except the leaders and politicians in Western countries. Even here in the US, 92% of the Democrats are against supporting Israel now. Only 8% Democrats support what is going on with Israel in Gaza. So this is a big issue. Now, as far as India is concerned, it was a very important week because Wang Yi came to India after 3 years. Wang Yi is not only the foreign minister of China, but he's a very powerful political personality. He is a member of the Politburo. In fact, he was promoted above the foreign minister level And then they had a foreign minister who disappeared, if you remember, a year or so. And then Wang Yi took over the foreign ministry. So he came to India. He met with Dr. Jaishankar. Then he met with Ajit Doval, the national security advisor, to discuss the border issues, Galwan and others. And then he also got a chance to meet with Prime Minister Modi. As those of you who watch conversations regularly, if you recall, I was saying it would be very interesting to see whether Wang Yi would meet with Prime Minister Modi, would meet with him. And he did. And that shows that India is far more eager to improve its relations and normalize relations with China than we thought. And this is moving very fast. But I think what to me was a bit surprising was that when I was watching the Indian media cover Monday, Tuesday visit of Wang Yi, they didn't talk about the fact that he was not just visiting India. He actually then went to Afghanistan and then went to Pakistan. So he spent 20th August in Afghanistan, had a trilateral there with Pakistan and Afghanistan, then went to Pakistan for a 2-day summit. So it was interesting. So it was a 5-day tour, 2 days in India, 2 days in Pakistan, and 1 day in Afghanistan for Wang Yi. So he's just touring his South Asia, the Chinese empire in South Asia now. It is very interesting that there has been some progress. India has now opened up visas for Chinese personnel who are coming into work. Apparently, many of the manufacturing units which have been established need high-skilled Chinese workers. And India had stopped that, and now they are opening up the visas for Chinese. And not only that, but I think tourist visas are also going to be open soon. The Chinese are allowing Indians to go to Mansarovar, which is a religious pilgrimage for Hindus. So there are some progress that you can see on the ground. But a couple of things have happened, which I think should look at it with care. I did write an article that some of you may have read it. It is called Has Donald Trump Upended India's Grand Strategy? It was published in The Diplomat. I have done both Hindi as well as English summaries, or basically reflections on my own article. And many of you have read it on both the channels. So please take a look at it. For those of you who are not in India, you're looking at my main channel, it's in English there, but if you're interested in Hindi, you can look at it at the other channel. But I also wanted to point out that Wang Yi then goes to Afghanistan and has a trilateral with Isaac Dar and Muttaqi, the Afghan acting foreign minister, and they talk about counterterrorism, they talk about investments in the mining sector especially, and they talk about the extension of CPEC from Pakistan into Afghanistan. So Afghanistan is now fully signed up on the Belt and Road Initiative. If you notice that in the past few months, India's relationship with Afghanistan had improved significantly, especially during Operation Sindoor and afterwards, because apparently the Afghans had provided some intelligence to India. And a secret visit by the Afghan defense minister. Well, it's not secret if I know it and I'm telling you about it. So the Taliban defense minister did make a visit to India, apparently, around that time. We don't know exactly on what day. But it seems that the India-Afghanistan relationship has now become a bit of in a limbo, because the Pakistanis are normalizing with Afghanistan under guidance from China. China wants both the countries to be normalized. That's why it's extending CPEC and using CPEC, I guess, as a carrot to Afghanistan to normalize relations with Pakistan, to control BLA as well as TTP terrorists who go into Pakistan and attack. And also they want East Turkmenistan related terrorists based in Afghanistan to be under control. And the Taliban have sort of reassured in this tripart they are going to do their best to control cross-border terrorism emanating from Afghanistan. And then he came to Pakistan, and so they are talking about more and more stabilization. But an interesting thing also happened here in India, where the Chinese ambassador to India I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's Feihong. Su Feihong spoke at the Chintan Foundation. The Chintan Foundation is a think tank, independent research institute. I don't know how independent it is, completely funded by the Adani group. So at the Chintan Foundation, he gave a talk at a summit called SCO, Revitalization of India-China Relations. And in that speech, he made 3 points which are very, very interesting. The first thing he did was to criticize the United States imposition of 50% tariffs on India. He was very, very critical of that and said this is a bullying, and so India and China should stand together against the US. China has always maintained that the sanctions that the US and Europe impose are illegal sanctions. They are not obviously based on international law. They are unilateral sanctions by these countries who are using their influence in the international system to bully other countries to change their foreign policy. So China has always maintained that position, and so they are extending the same thing to India and saying that what the US is doing to India by imposing 50% tariffs is basically unacceptable bullying, and China stands with India, supports India. He also made the point that the United States benefited from globalization, and now that it's not benefiting, it is imposing tariffs on everybody, basically destroying what globalization was. One of the most important elements of globalization was free trade, and Donald Trump is basically putting an end to free trade. The second point that he made was very interesting. It's something that I've been making on this show many, many times. I've said this in the last 3 to 4 years, probably 100 times, that if India and China work together, then this will be an Asian century. And so he put it in a slightly different way. He said that if India and China continue to develop, then it is India and China which will make sure that this becomes an Asian century. You see, India and China together drive more than 1/3 of the global economy. The growth engines of the global economy today are India and China. So if they work and collaborate, India and China, clearly they will determine the direction of the global economy and world politics. So in that sense, I'm glad that he made that point, because I've been making that point for a long time. I'm very nervous about China because China's geopolitics is not very favorable towards India. And the third point is about that. In the third point that he made, Su Feihong at this Chintan Foundation, he said that we all need to fight terrorism. Terrorism is a threat to all, and all three, China, India, and Pakistan, are victims of terrorism. Now, this must have really rankled there, and people clearly, if you look at the Indian media, they're kind of pissed about this whole thing. They're miffed and irritated because, I mean, one of the main goals of Indian diplomacy and foreign policy these days, especially since Pahalgam, is to portray Pakistan as a sponsor of terrorism and to get Pakistan completely isolated from the international society, to be excluded from global governance, etc. But India is failing there because China is portraying Pakistan as a victim of terrorism, along with India and with China. So there's a rehyphenation that has taken place, which is one thing that India doesn't like. So China has rehyphenated India and Pakistan by clubbing the two trips, for example. Wang Yi comes to India, he doesn't go back to China, he goes to Pakistan via Afghanistan. If you remember, on 26th of January, the chief guest for India's Republic Day was Prabowo, the president of Indonesia. And initially, he announced that he was going to come to India for the Independence Day. And on the same day, on 26th of January, he was going to go to Pakistan. And India was up in arms, and there was lots of protests from India and a lot of lobbying. And under pressure from India, Prabowo basically decided not to go to Pakistan at that time. And he said, we will go at some other time. And so India was able to pressure the president of Indonesia, probably the fourth biggest, probably the third biggest democracy in the world after India and the US. And the biggest Muslim democracy in the world is Indonesia, with over 300 million people, close to 300 million people. So India was able to successfully pressure Indonesia not to go to Pakistan, but Wang Yi, not a word from Indian Ministry of External Affairs, and nothing like that. In fact, so far there has been no reaction from the Ministry of External Affairs on the comments made by the ambassador Su Feihong, that Pakistan is a victim of terrorism and not a perpetrator, supporter, exporter of terrorism. So that is a setback from a diplomatic perspective, and let's hope that Ajit Doval was able to make some progress on the border issue of de-escalation. So there is still a very heavy military presence of the Chinese in the Galwan area. And so India is hoping that there is a de-escalation taking place to move forward. But on the trade issue, things are moving forward in some ways. There was an interesting article in the Bloomberg that I wanted to share with you, which talked about how India is stuck between China and the US when it comes to the solar cells energy. So India is trying very hard to become Atmanirbhar in solar energy. So they're trying very hard to make solar cells, but a lot of ingredients in making the solar cells come from China. So if you go and read the article on Bloomberg, you can see the details. So there are lots of Indian manufacturers of solar cells who are interviewed in that article, and they give details. I'm an electronics engineer, but I worked only 1 year for Larsen and Toubro, and after that, I moved away from engineering. So when I read it, I could understand, but I'm not able to remember and tell you. But the filaments, etc., all the stuff that comes from China for the making of the solar cell are very critical. But not only that, but the machines which are used to make the solar cells also come from China. So China is now beginning to control exporting some critical aspects. So they are going to stop exporting those things which will make India completely self-reliant on solar cells and solar batteries, etc., and not dependent on China. So they are not going to allow that. And the second thing is happening is that India's biggest export market for the solar cells, etc., is the US. So if apparently starting 27th on Wednesday, my semester starts on 25th of August, but I start teaching on the 27th, which is Wednesday. On Wednesday, when the tariffs, the extra tariffs kick in, the overall tariffs on India is 50%, but apparently on solar cell, it's going to be 64%. I couldn't figure it out why the US is like, this is 25 plus 25 plus another 14. So apparently there was already some additional tariffs under national security reasons that US has imposed on importation of batteries and solar cells, etc. It is quite possible it might be on the components that are made in China. So anyway, it's going to go to 64% tariffs on. So the poor Indian manufacturers are now stuck between the US, which is going to impose tariffs on their exports. So they will not be able to export as much to the US. So they will have to sell it domestically or reduce production and fire people. And then they are not going to become totally independent of the Chinese supply chain. So we will see how things progress going forward with China. And right now, it seems that India is stuck between Beijing and Washington, D.C., while people are trying to spin it as a positive thing that India is exercising strategic autonomy. The fact that India is immediately turning towards Beijing after turning away from Washington suggests to you that there is no autonomy there. So I'm going to stop with that. Those are my comments. And so now I will read your comments and see if there are any interesting questions. And don't forget to super thanks, etc. are enabled, and your super thanks are highly appreciated. So Ayush Badoria, what do you think on China and AI? So I did a show, Ayush, a couple of weeks ago on I spoke to Ashar Farhan, the tech entrepreneur. He's the Elon Musk of Hyderabad, and talked about the impact of AI on India's on India's IT sector. Lots and lots of jobs are going to be lost. If you notice, TCS, I think, laid off 20,000 people. Microsoft laid off 9,000 people. Many of them were Indian H-1B holders. So there are going to be a lot of job losses, but there are also going to be new jobs that are created with people who have AI generated. But in that context, I did take a look at the US, India, and the Chinese tech industry. So there are two aspects to the whole IT business: hardware and software. When it comes to hardware manufacturing, the US is nowhere, absolutely no presence. India, very small presence. India's IT manufacturing is less than $50 billion. But India has decent presence in the service sector, software generation, etc., about $300 billion worth of service industry. So I was always under the impression that the India's service industry was the biggest in the world, because everywhere you have Indian engineers working all over the world, etc. But I was surprised that when I looked at China, it was like, wow, that was my reaction. I said, oh my God. First of all, when it comes to manufacturing, there is no competition at all. China is more than $1 trillion into hardware of IT, laptops, all the ingredients that go into it, etc. So, I mean, all the iPhones, even the iPhones which India is exporting, a large element of that is actually manufactured in China. So India is just doing 20% of the iPhones that it makes, or only 20% are made in India. The rest are made in China. So whether it's iPads, all of this hardware, especially computers, hardware, etc., China is way, way ahead. Even now, in terms of legacy chips, for example, China is on par with Taiwan. At 50% of the global market is now in China. And then China is also moving forward on the AI chips. So Donald Trump has made a deal with NVIDIA, in which he has told NVIDIA, you can sell advanced chips to China, and the US is going to take a 15% cut from the profits that NVIDIA is going to make. It's a very weird arrangement. I'm going to be doing a show soon. I'm going to call it a communist strategy, where the government is owning industry and industry profits. It's not a tax. They want a share of the profit, which is, I mean, they could do it as a tax, but they're just doing it as a profit sharing with NVIDIA. But what it has done is that Biden had stopped NVIDIA's advanced chips from being sold to China. But Trump is allowing it, but China is not allowing it, because China wants to become Atmanirbhar in AI chip manufacturing. So when it comes to hardware, China, no competition. India and the US together are less than 10% of what China does. It is over $1 trillion. In fact, everything that goes into electronic manufacturing is in China. But when it comes to software, that's where I was stunned. The US software industry is $500 billion, $500 billion. India is about 300, and China is equal to the total of the two. So China's software industry is about $800 billion. And that is very surprising. So I think that the US still has an edge in AI, both in hardware and software, thanks to NVIDIA and ChatGPT. So companies like ChatGPT, Claude, etc., all of these, the most of the AI things that are taking over the world are coming from the US. Gemini, Grok, all of these are AI, US software development. Then the main chips are coming from NVIDIA. So hardware as well as software, the US is ahead, but China is catching up. Like I said, it's making indigenous chips for AI, and then DeepSeek is one of their examples. So other than the Chinese, no one else is giving America a competition in AI. Indians are talking, but not doing anything. I can't mention. It's just, give us 5 years, we will be dominating the world. Give us 10 years, we will be $10 billion economy. Give us 15. It's like all in the future. But right now, I have not seen a single major AI agent or anything coming out of India. The only thing that I've heard is about this company called InVideo, InVideo, which basically what it does is if you give it a script, it makes a YouTube video for you. It's very good. I tested it once, and I think that um, that's all. It's an application. It's an agent of AI. But there's nothing like ChatGPT or anything coming out of India. China has done okay. So, for example, it has brands which are big like Alibaba, TikTok, and now DeepSeek. But other than DeepSeek, I've not seen anything else come from China in AI. And I have used DeepSeek. It may be good for scientific research, which I don't do, but for social sciences, political science, and general research, etc., I didn't find DeepSeek is. I find Claude and Grok much better than DeepSeek. But if you're doing hardcore mathematical research, I think DeepSeek is much better suited for that. And if you're doing stocks, I think, because ultimately it was written by stockbrokers. So Ayush, I hope you got a full answer. Purushottam, hello. Hitesh, namaste to you. Rana, Jai Ma Bhavani. Okay, what a strange comment. Anyway, क्या जियोपॉलिटिक्स आज से 50 साल पहले भी ऐसा ही था? Oh, Sharif Hafiz, a very interesting question. So there is, in international relations theory, when people teach IR, they teach a book called The Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. So that book is considered as like the hallmark of how to teach international relations, and everything that happens in geopolitics, you can find an example in that book. And then, of course, in the medieval ages, you can go and teach Machiavelli's, Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince, which is a very good book written by, say, someone who could be a national security advisor. So some of the tricks in geopolitics are the same. In fact, I think that you can teach geopolitics using Mahabharata also. Not so much with Ramayana, but with Mahabharata. So if you look at the 18-day war and some of the tactics that were used by Krishna and Duryodhan and Dronacharya, the battle strategies, the alignments in before that. So there's one very interesting episode in the Mahabharata where Duryodhan and Arjun both go to Krishna to get his support in the war. So Duryodhan goes, and Krishna is sleeping, so Duryodhan goes and sits by the head, I guess, reading some magazine, waiting for Krishna to get up, but Arjun stands near the feet. And Duryodhan is elder than Arjun. In fact, he's elder than all of the Pandavas. So when Krishna gets up, he sees Arjun first. And but Duryodhan had come before Arjun, so he says, I came first, so let me ask first. But Krishna says, I saw Arjun first, so I'm going to let him ask first. So Arjun says, I want you to be with me on my side. So Krishna gives his armies to Duryodhan and himself to the Pandavas. So there are a lot of these interesting allies, and I was looking at it and I said, okay, so Krishna was also practicing multi-alignment. He said, I will fight with the Pandavas, but my armies will fight with the Kauravas. So you can go back and look at it. Dr. Jaishankar's new book, Bharat Matters, in which he tries to invoke some comments from the Mahabharata. So yes, you can go back and look at it. If you are familiar with Islamic history, then you can go and read Ibn Khaldun. And Ibn Khaldun talks a lot about geopolitics. I have Ibn Khaldun in many languages. I have him in the original Arabic, I have him in English, I have him in Urdu also. So Ibn Khaldun is very, very interesting. In fact, there is a very interesting story about how Timur the Lame actually invited Ibn Khaldun for 3 days. And so there's a very long description. You can Google it. Some professor translated it and put it on his website. And the details with which Ibn Khaldun was explaining the geopolitics of North Africa and the Middle East to Timur Lane, who wanted to understand uh, what the alignment structures, etc. were. So geopolitics has more or less been the same. The only new thing is international liberalism, which the creation of UN, World Bank, IMF, UN Security Council, and things like that didn't exist in the past. And they are so weak. So in many ways, the world politics looks like any world politics at any time in history. Sometimes the UN works, and then it is very different. Rana Sheikhwat, again, why do you keep popping up? Nadeem Beg, wa alaikum salam. I don't know what is this. Okay. Mark, you're very regular. Thanks for coming. The arrogance of the Indian government caused India to be sidelined and isolated world geopolitics. No room for arrogance. Yeah, India had become full of itself. Big talk, we are Vishwaguru. I don't know in what the world is following India. I don't understand. But Modi keeps talking about everybody is copying India. I don't know in what. India is copying the world in everything. Yesterday, I went and saw this stupid movie called War 2. Oh my God, what an awful movie. And so my wife is going to owe me a lot of favors in return for watching that movie. 3 hours of rubbish. But what was interesting is that it was all, these days, all movies from Bollywood are all about nationalism and patriotism. Main India ke liye mar jaunga and I'll die for India. But the moment I get a visa from another country, I'm going to run away. But anyway, so there's too much of nationalism. But guess how the nationalism was being described? India first, India first. And I said, even the nationalism is not original. You took Donald Trump's America first, and now you made it India first. So, Vishwaguru, Donald Trump is your guru. So, to me, that was very upsetting. Mark, I think you misunderstood India's policy. Nadeem Beg is chatting with me. Samir, hello, Samir. Good evening to you too. Nadeem Beg is asking me about my visit, Wang Yi's visit to. It was very interesting that he went there. There was nothing big that came out of Pakistan's visit, but just the visit itself, I think, was the message. That is my reading, that Wang Yi's visit to Pakistan was a message in itself. And I think this is something that should be in India. India should not respond to it in public. They should simply ignore the fact. They should just say, well, he came and he left. They should not focus too much on what he did there. But the Indian think tank, whoever it is, Dr. Jaishankar sitting with Modi or whatever, they must take this as a provocation, because this is a message to India saying we are rehyphenating you with Pakistan. And then Feihong's comment that both India and Pakistan and then China also, all three of them are victims of terrorism. So that will be a big issue at the SCO summit when Modi goes there at the end of this month. In fact, next week, 31st of August, he's going there. And when he goes there, this is the line that China is going to take, that we are all victims of terrorism. That is why we created SCO, to fight extremism and terrorism. China is against 4 things. The whole purpose of SCO was to go against extremism, terrorism, religious fanaticism, and secessionism, countries trying to break away. So there's a lot of commonality. India would find all of that apply to Kashmir, for example, from an Indian point of view. And for Pakistan, they all apply in the Balochistan area. So there's a commonality there. So China wants to use that as a paradigm, but India wants to, India has a different agenda with Pakistan. So India will have to figure it out as to how. See, India is getting upset that Donald Trump went and met with, invited Munir, Pakistan's field marshal, Asim Munir, to White House. In fact, apparently, this is from my sources in in Washington, the Indians were very, very upset about it. And in privately with the US government, they raised hell and said, why did you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And this happened at the same time that Donald Trump was getting pissed off with the phone call that he had with Modi. And Indians were getting pissed off with Donald Trump hosting Asim Munir. So the relationship, this was going on behind the scenes. So like we didn't know about the phone call till very late. I mean, we figured it out like 2 months later. It came out in the public that Modi's and Trump's telephone conversation was very tough, very acrimonious is the word that was used by some American sources. So India is getting very upset with how America is reaching out to Pakistan. So how is India going to swallow all the support that China gives to Pakistan? Financial support, financial aid during the Operation Sindoor. It was just aligned with Pakistan, and subsequently in every international forum, China is voting with Pakistan and not India. So we will see how that goes. And remember one thing, the reason why Pakistan, I think, does well with it's like this. I used to play table tennis in high school. At one point, I was in the top 10 in Hyderabad. So I have reached quarterfinals twice in the state championship. So now, when I would play with kids and they would ask me for my rackets or old rubbers to take for them, I would easily give them because they're not a threat. But now if I'm number 8 and number 10 asks me for my racket, and I'm saying, oh shit, if I give him my racket, he might beat me because my racket has good spin on it. So suddenly, number 10 ranked player becomes a threat to me because I am number 8. But if number 50 asks me for any help, I have no problem helping number 50 because no matter what he does, he's not going to beat me. I'll probably meet him in the first round and beat. So Pakistan is like that. It's not a threat to America. So America does not affect America to help Pakistan in some ways. Similarly, Pakistan is not a threat to China. So China will help Pakistan. But with India, it's different. India is both, at least the Chinese are thinking, look, if we help India, then it will become a challenge to us very soon. Plus, it is trying to replace us in the global supply chain. Right? So China is number 2, is looking at the global economy number 4 and saying, if I help number 4, it could become number 2 and I could become number 3. So that is the difference between India, China, India, US, and Pakistan, China, and Pakistan, US. And Pakistan is going to have that advantage for a long time because Pakistan is not going to threaten America's dominance or China's dominance, but India is pretending, at least right now, to threaten them. And eventually it will if it continues to grow and India becomes a $25 trillion economy in the next 20, 30 years. With a population which will be close to 1.7 billion in the world, nearly every 5th person in the world will be an Indian, then you have a huge challenge. So it's going to be slightly different. Anurag, that's a serious threat. I'm laughing at it, but there's a pretty good chance that Donald Trump might go after Maduro in Venezuela. And for him, it's a low-hanging fruit. He thinks that without too much losses, I can go there. Plus, he's on a high after what happened with Iran, and we have obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities with zero. Do you know that not a single anti-aircraft missile was fired by Iran? And America sent what I'm forgetting, about 10 or 12 B-2s and over 180 F-35s and F-16s and F-22s were in the air. So about 200, close to 200 American fighter planes were all over Iran during that attack. And nothing. The Iranians didn't shoot back. They didn't shoot any plane down. It's as if they just took it, So for him, it is like a zero risk. But this will be a ground operation if they go into Venezuela. So there can be potentially some casualties, but the Americans will be heavily armored and protected. I hope he doesn't do that. But you never know if he wants a win, foreign policy win, especially if he's not able to organize a meeting between Putin and Zelensky, then he might attempt that. But there's a pretty good chance that he might do that. Is Zelensky coming to India? We will see how that goes, because it depends on Putin now. India is now so desperate to become friends with Russia and China that India is not going to take any step to upset Russia. India coming to Putin, India meeting with Zelensky without Putin's approval will piss off Putin. No doubt about that. So India will have to figure that out. The Europeans will be happy. So if India wants to please the Europeans and upset Russia, then it is, because I'd see no intrinsic national interest for India to meet Zelensky. What does India get out of it? To use the War II movies metaphor, India first. If you put India first, what has that got to do with Ukrainians? Nothing. No benefit, unless you think that, if we go and host Zelensky, then it will make the Europeans happy. It might tick off even Donald Trump. Both Trump and Putin could get pissed off with the US for doing that, with India for doing that. But Europeans will be very happy. And so if Modi wants to make Europe happy, then he could do that. But I think he should not, especially not before Zelensky meets Putin. Modi should not meet Zelensky before Zelensky meets Putin. Mark, yeah, Kanhaiya Meena, India, Israel, Zindabad. Okay, bhai. So why are you here? And Virat Kohli, why did you retire so early, Virat? You really broke my heart. Conversation is better to have loyal enemy China than friend like US who has been backstabbing India. Look, if the US has been backstabbing India, then why did Modi become so close to the US in the last 7 years? You should have removed Modi as Prime Minister of India for compromising India's national interest, isn't it? If India, so why did your government pursue the US so obsessively with Quad, summit after summit after summit, and going there and doing exercises with the Quad? Why did India do that? You should punish them, your government, for doing that. Mark, you have asked me this question before. India is trying to do halala with China right now, and Russia. I mean, the initiative to revive RIC, Russia, India, China, came from Sergei Lavrov. He was the first person to raise that issue. And then India said nothing in March, but India basically, after Trump imposed tariffs, India is now running towards China and Russia. But before that, India was not. India was actually backstabbing China and Russia in BRICS as well as in SCO. Look at the way India treated SCO until Trump kicked them out. So India was chairman of the SCO in 2023. And India stabbed SCO in the back by suddenly converting the entire summit into a virtual summit instead of allowing Xi Jinping and Putin to come to India. India didn't want that to do because Biden would have been upset. So to make Biden happy, they blocked Xi Jinping and Putin from coming to India, and so they had a video conference. And then in 2024, India did not go to the SCO summit. Or rather, Modi did not go. Dr. Jaishankar went and spoke instead of Modi in the heads of states version. So in SCO, they have a defense ministers meeting, they have a finance ministers meeting, they have a foreign ministers meeting, and then they have the heads of states towards the end of the year, which is what Modi is now going to in China. So India didn't go in 2024. And then when SCO tried to issue a statement condemning the US and Israel for attacking Iran, which is a member of SCO, India stabbed Iran and the SCO in the back again. This guy, Virat Kohli, is talking about US stabbing India in the back. India has been stabbing SCO in the back and all other friends in the back for Israel and America. India blocked that resolution in SCO against SCO. Iran is a member of SCO. You are a member of SCO. Your friend and your co-member is being attacked by countries who are not members of SCO. But India stabbed them in the back. And then India tried to do the same thing in Brazil with the G20. But Lula is much smarter. And Lula said, okay, if you do not, because BRICS was going to condemn Israel and its Gaza thing. So he said, fine, we will not talk about Pahalgam at all. So India was desperate because Pakistan is in SCO, so it's difficult to condemn Pakistan at SCO, but at BRICS, India wanted to condemn Pakistan. So they didn't allow that. They did allow India to include one paragraph. I did a whole show on the BRICS final statement. Take a look at it. I know you guys don't like it. We are supposed to pretend that Modi is great, but no, I did a whole thing. Take a look at it. I have screenshots in the video. Unlike the Godi media, I provide proof of everything that I'm saying. And you can see there was only one paragraph in which the word cross-border terrorism was used, and they talked about the loss of civilian life in Pahalgam. But then there was like 3 or 4 long paragraphs about condemnation of Israel for what it was doing, is genocide in Gaza and its starvation as a genocide instrument, etc. So Modi had to sign up on the condemnation of Israel. Otherwise, he would have come home from Brazil with no mention of Pahalgam. So Lula trapped Modi. Very smart move by Lula. Now, I'm quite close to the Brazilian since my last visit. I know people there who work in the administration. In fact, the article that I wrote day before yesterday in The Diplomat that you guys should see, a lot of people have been in Brazil, have liked it and got back to me. So India stabbed. Now look at India running back to China, and going to SCO summit. Suddenly Modi is now going. Jaishankar went, and he also went. Rajnath Singh went for the defense thing, where in the defense ministers summit, India did not sign it because SCO was condemning the terrorism attack on the Jafar Express, but did not mention Pahalgam at all. So that was an interesting development there. So we will go in. We will see what happens going forward. But India will have to find some ways to be to coexist with Pakistan if it wants to get close to China. A few months ago, there were lots of reports about Russia also doing an outreach with Pakistan. And if Pakistan begins to have a lot of influence in Afghanistan through this trilateral arrangement and CPEC, which means if Pakistan and China become more influential in Afghanistan than India, Russia has a lot of interest in Afghanistan because Russia was the only country that has recognized the Taliban. Remember that. India has not recognized the Taliban. China has not recognized the Taliban. Pakistan has not. But Russia has, because Russia has lots of interest in Afghanistan. And if Russia sees that China and Pakistan have more influence in Afghanistan than India, then that nexus will become much tighter and Pakistan will become more influential in SCO. And Pakistan is, and Putin has invited Pakistan to apply for admission into BRICS, which India is blocking. So it's going to be a very messy kind of thing, but we will see how things move forward on that front. Please go and see my article in The Diplomat on how Donald Trump has completely upended India's grand strategy. I'm going to post it here, the link. And as I said, I also did a Hindi and English versions of this article. Brief context, established a context for these articles. Take a look at it. Umar, for China, it was double trouble, Hong Kong protests and COVID, yeah. Wang visited Afghanistan first, then Pakistan. Yes, he went to Pakistan via Afghanistan. He didn't spend the night in Afghanistan. He was there, just there. And even the meeting there, he had one meeting with Muttaqi, and then he had a trilateral with Muttaqi and Isaac Dar, who flew there. And then In the same evening, Wang Yi left for Pakistan. What are you saying, Shekhar? I didn't understand. Yeah, you should take a look at this book. I did a whole show on this. India is Broken by Ashoka Modi. He's a professor at Princeton University, and he's a Gujarati, obviously, from Gujarat. But he was a very senior economist at IMF, worked in IMF for many, many years, and now he teaches there. So I did a whole video. If you are in India, you will not be able to see that because my channel is blocked, but you can see what he means. It's a very interesting discussion we had. His name is Ashoka Modi. Modi spelled with a Y, Mody. So you can take a look at it. Go back and take a look at it. What is the work of religion in democracy? I don't know. We need to talk about this some other time. Anything in? Yeah, Nvidia is 4.5 trillion. It's not bigger than the whole Indian economy. What its value is at $4.45 trillion market capitalization. So if you wanted to buy all of Nvidia today, then you would have to spend $4.45 trillion. But if you wanted to buy all of India, obviously, it's thousands of $trillion. But yeah, it sounds like that. India's GDP is not yet 4 trillion. At the end of this year, it will become $4.2 trillion when India will overtake Japan. But we have to see how the second and the fourth quarter. John Smith, hello. He's a member of Conversations. Welcome. India can argue that it's trying to improve ties with China, independent of US tariff, as it makes sense. Yeah, but it doesn't make sense, John Smith. Why didn't they try to do this before the tariffs are imposed? It's like saying that I say something bad about something and you don't like it, and so you stop watching my show. Then it's a reaction to what I said, right? And you can spin it and say, oh no, I was already thinking of going and listening to some other people. Doesn't make sense at all. India can make all the points that it wants to. It said it started with Kazan, the good relations. And so, yes, India pretended that things had become pretty normal on the border with China, which is not true, because the de-escalation has not happened. Even Jaishankar said that, even Doval said it in this recent meeting with Wang Yi. But the speed with which India is moving towards China now has been as they realized that the negotiations were not going well with the US. So actually, for all of us, the trouble started in July, right? In early August, when Donald Trump imposed the tariffs and the penalties, then we realized that things are going bad. But India had realized much earlier, the Modi government knew much earlier, because the telephone call of Modi and Trump, the last time they spoke, which was on June 21st or 22nd, after Trump left G7 summit from Canada and came early and could not meet, and he tried to invite Modi to come. I think he wanted to surprise Modi and Asim Munir by putting them together in a press situation. And I think Indian intelligence guessed it, and therefore Modi didn't come to the US. But that phone call was very acrimonious. No one told us, right, that Modi had a very tough phone call. They had a press release in which Modi said that we will never ask for mediation. But what they didn't tell us that it was a very acrimonious phone call. So India-US relations, as far as India was concerned, already India knew by June that, okay, we are in trouble with the US. And then they started moving towards China. I'm convinced it is a bound. Read my article, John. I've posted the link in the bottom. Go and read other people also. A lot of people are saying that. Rahul, yes. Foreign direct investments. Yeah. I also looked at foreign direct investments in India. So if you look at the top 4, it used to be Mauritius, Singapore, US and Netherlands. Now it is Singapore, Mauritius, US, and Netherlands. Singapore, Mauritius, and Netherlands are what they call as roundabouts, or basically it's Indians sending money to fake companies in Mauritius and Singapore and Netherlands. So it's people like Adani, Ambani, and others taking their money abroad and then investing back in India to avoid taxes in India. So the biggest investor, foreign direct investments, therefore, is the US until now in India. Now, Batman, hi to you too. Very strange comments from Rahul. Yeah, that is an interesting development. The Bangladesh-Pakistan connection. Bangladesh is still very dependent on India. It's impossible for Bangladesh to have hostile relations. Bangladesh is completely surrounded by India geographically. Bangladesh has a lot of dependencies on India. Bangladesh is when they want better healthcare, they come to India. For education, they come to India. Many of the raw materials Bangladesh has only one industry on which it has grown, which is export of garments. And all the raw material for those garments come from India. Now they're shifting away. Bangladesh has agreed to buy American cotton at 0% tariffs, and also from China. So India is making a mistake by blocking exports to Bangladesh. They think they're pressuring Bangladesh, but what they are doing is making Bangladesh more and more independent of India. And all right, guys. So this is very interesting. Lots of interesting questions and a lot of weird comments. But why will dollar devalue? If dollar perv Swami, if dollar is devalued, it'll be good for America. You don't understand. When your currency goes down, then your exports go up because your exports become cheaper. If dollar becomes stronger, then your exports become less difficult. So, for example, let us say that right now the dollar is what, 87 to the rupee. So if I have a car, let's say Tesla costs $87,000. No, sorry, $1,000. Then you will have to pay 87,000 rupees to buy Tesla, which is $1,000. But you'll be paying 87,000 rupees to buy that. But if Tesla remains at 1,000, but the dollar goes from 87 to 50 rupees, then for Tesla, you will have to pay only 50,000 rupees now instead of 87,000. For me, it's the same. I'm selling my car for $1,000. So now suddenly Tesla becomes more affordable to you. And if your rupee becomes stronger, and let's say it becomes 30, then suddenly Tesla is just 30,000, and you say, oh, wow, I'm going to buy two, one for myself and one for my wife. So don't think that if dollar becomes weak, it will hurt the US economy. It will actually benefit the US economy. Because dollar is strong, we import a lot. And if dollar becomes weak, we will export a lot. So the Chinese keep yuan down artificially. So one of the complaints that the Westerners have about the Chinese shady practices in international trade is that they have kept their currency down artificially. So people say that yuan is actually should be much more stronger. I think it's right about 6 per dollar. It should be much more stronger. It should be like 4 per dollar or something like that. And if you do that suddenly, then yes, China's GDP will look much more than the US, but China's exports will become very expensive. Oh, wow, Himanshu Singh, where are you? This is fantastic, Himanshu. I will send you a copy of my book. Send me an email to ask Prof. Khan at gmail.com. Send me your email address, Himanshu Singh, and I will send you a couple of interesting PDF books on grant strategy. And I'll also send you one of my books. Lakshmi Iyer, hello, Dr. Khan. Hope you're doing fine. I'm doing fine, Lakshmi. Lakshmi is a supporter of conversations. I'm planning to have a member meeting. I was planning to have it this weekend, but I have to go to Chicago to speak at a large convention. And so I will not be able to do it then, but the first Sunday will be on the 6th or 7th of September. I will schedule a meeting for members on Zoom, and that's when we get to meet face to face. Lakshmi, don't miss that meeting. Keep an eye. I post it in the community section, the link. That's where I post the link to the Zoom. Oh, yes, Lakshmi, that's a very good question. I actually did a show called Modi is Not India. There's a lot of people are upset not because you're critical of India. They get upset because you're critical of Modi. In fact, a lot of Indian journalists have advised me and say, Dr. Khan, don't talk about Modi and criticize India. I said, that's the whole point. I am pro-India. That's why I have India's flag up there. I'm not pro-Modi. I am pro-India. I'm concerned about India. I think India has a fantastic chance the next 15, 20 years to become a major country, a global power, to become a Vishwa Guru, all of that. And I think the current government is holding it back, hurting it by its foreign policy because they're trying to promote one man and making a god out of him. So, and in the past, and America is slightly becoming like that. Fortunately, they are turning against Trump, but it was also like that. This whole idea, it is a very right-wing populist model. The same with Erdogan. People started worshipping Erdogan more than Turkey. And then he did a lot of stupid things which hurt Turkish economy, but no criticism of him, no replacement of him as a leader. The same thing happened again with Modi in India, with Donald Trump here in Hungary, for example. The same thing was happening with Bolsonaro in Brazil. So these right-wing leaders come in and try to convince that main hu to koi nahi, I'm the only guy who can save your country. And then they make mistakes, and then the country suffers for it. And because they have, in India, it is a bit more, because in Indian culture, there is a lot of, the distance between God and man is very narrow. Very quickly, ये तो भगवान है, आप भगवान. You know that famous song, तुझ में रब दिखता है. That is blasphemy under Abrahamic faiths. To me, as a Muslim, to look at another human being and think he's God, oh my God, that is blasphemy. How can you treat human beings as God? Human beings are the creation. God is the creator. But in India, it's like this. There are people in India who worship Trump. Now, obviously, I'm sure they have destroyed, but there were people who were on TV shows in 2017. I saw who were doing Trump's puja. In Andhra Pradesh, there was a temple for N.T. Rama Rao. And then here Modi came out and told, I'm non-biological. What is he trying to say? That I'm God? So yeah, that is a strange thing. People should understand that in a democracy, your leader is your servant. He's not your God. He's your servant. He's there to serve you. And you should hold him accountable, not the other way around. He's not your savior. He's not your Messiah. Thank you for asking that question, Lakshmi. Great question. Yes, Himanshu, that's my method. I'll give you the data. You can reach different conclusions with it. And I agree with it. If you give me a good argument, I will change my opinion. And that's why you should have data. Without data, it is a perception, And let me give you an example. I saw there was a survey that was doing. So in America, it's very difficult to find out how many. I can tell you exactly how many Indians are there in America, but I can't tell you how many Hindus are there, how many Indian Muslims are there. It's just a guesswork or some kind of a survey sampling exercise, but it's impossible to get an accurate data. So somebody was doing a survey of Muslims in America. So I read the survey and I was surprised as to how he did it. So he went to all the Friday prayers and went to all these mosques and did it. And so the mosque that I go to is the biggest mosque in Delaware. And the president was interviewed, and he said that on Friday prayers, 1,500 people come to pray in the mosque. And so they did some mathematics and said, oh, okay, how many people don't pray? And so there are 10,000 Muslims in Delaware. And so the survey moved on. So I went to the mosque, and I go there on Fridays. And so I met with the president. He was an old friend of mine called Jamil. He passed away a few years ago. I said, Jamil, did you tell the surveyor that there are 1,500 people praying? He said, yeah, look. I said, count. He said, look there. I said, count. So there were 44 people in one row, okay? And there were only 15 rows. So I said, how much is that? 440 plus half of that, 220. There are only 660 people in the mosque right now. He said, what? I said, count everyone physically. There are only 660 people. That is the data. He said, but I thought there were 1,500. I said, I don't know how you got this impression. Yes, the mosque is full. It's overflowing, but the capacity is just 660. You overestimated the population by 250%. And to me, that's the point, right? It was a perception. Somebody must have said sometime, yaar, 1500 log aate hain Juma padhne. And it stuck in his head. And so everyone thought that until I actually did a physical count. There were 44 people in a row, and there were only 15 rows. So that is how we need to do. So present the data first and then draw conclusions from that, right? I mean, this is a simple example that came to my head just now, so I'm sharing it with you. And it's the same about many, many things about people. Like one data point that I use sometimes to shock people is this. Since COVID, or since 2021, America's economy has grown by 2 Indias and 1 Saudi Arabia by $9 trillion. It went from 21 to $30 trillion. So in just 5 years, it added 1 India, then another India, then Saudi Arabia, which is $1 trillion. That's $9 trillion added. China's economy went from 14 to 19. It also added 1 India and 1 Saudi Arabia to its economy. Do you hear them bragging that we are the fastest growing economies in the world? We are this, we are that. Have you ever heard Xi Jinping talk like that? Donald Trump says it's a beautiful economy, big economy, but not the way India keeps talking about, oh, we're the fastest growing economy. Yeah, but America has added 2 Indias in the last 5 years, and China has added 1 India in the last 5 years. So suddenly when you hit that, that's the data point, right? It hits you like a shock. Nobody in India will tell you that. That's why they banned my channel in India. Anyway, lots of interesting questions and comments, and I've gone over my time. I'm going to record a very interesting show, hopefully today at some point, and I will upload it late tonight. So those who are in India, you will see it tomorrow morning. And those who are in the US time zones, probably later tonight at around 11 o'clock, you will get to see it. So anyway, thank you very much for watching Conversations and supporting the channel. WhatsApp University, that question, Jaishankar's comment was to the Europeans who are buying India's oil. He has a point there, Europeans and Americans are putting pressure on India not to buy Russian oil. But Europeans are also buying India's refined oil. So I did a whole show called The Double Standards of European Union and US, and I showed all the data, who's importing how much from where. The only difference is that the European countries which are buying, they need it desperately, especially Hungary, others. Otherwise, their economies will completely collapse from not buying Indian oil, etc. But what India is doing is very different. India is profiteering. So if you look at, I showed that data also, where India's largest import now is oil, and India's biggest export is also oil. China is not exporting oil. Turkey is not exporting oil. They are buying oil for their own consumption. India is buying oil to make profit. That's the difference. That's what Trump is not able to say it more clearly, but Scott Bessent is saying that very clearly in his trade. He's even mentioning the Ambanis who are making the profit. They have estimated that Ambani has made $16 billion profit from oil. They're calling it the Indian oil arbitrage. Arbitrage means buying low, selling high. The Asian Development Bank loan is for about $800 million Hussein Fayyaz to Pakistan for development of its natural resources. I don't know more than that. Vishan Singh, I am pro-India. I am just not a Modi bhakt. If I was pro anybody else, I would spend my time. I'm spending so much of my time reading about India, monitoring India, and talking to Indians. If I got 1/3 the views from non-Indian viewers, I would make more money. And if I talked about Japan or other countries, I would even make more money. Even in the Middle East, I'm very famous in the Middle East. All of these books that you see, this entire shelf from top to bottom, these are books and book chapters and journal articles that I have written, all of this. So everybody knows me there in many parts of the Middle East. So to me, it was a big sacrifice to focus on India because nobody knows me in India, or at least didn't until recently. But now the Modi government blocked me, so they know about me at least. And so anyway, that's my take. I am an Indian American, so I take care of it. Nobody, my email is slightly above you. Look at 3-4 steps before you ask profkhan@gmail.com. All right, guys, take care. Bye. Khuda Hafiz. Namaste. Sat Sri Akal. Take care.